Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. But before I get to our guest here, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We'd greatly appreciate it. And also, before I introduce my guest, if you can remember from one of our previous podcasts, Scott Kahn from the band Dream Eternal Bliss, he just sent me one of their newest CDs, everyone. It is called Picture Glass. I highly recommend everyone give a listen to it, and I'll leave all the links down below. And Scott, thank you so much for this. But for our current guest, we have Sam Jones. He's the founder of the group All In. It's basically everything about well-being and just getting that more healthy aspects in life. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, he's got the answers for it. I mean, he's led research projects on well-being that have helped people access their mental health for free, and it's now accessible for over 5 continents. He's also coached and advised over 300 people from all backgrounds, but most importantly, he's our current guest. Sam, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what got you started, what really motivated you to start this group?
Yeah, it started because, well-being became really important to my upbringing. It was something that really affected my family, starting with my nan, all the way down to the women in my family. I have a huge family from Wales, and from that, mental health was a big thing. And I really got initiated that into when I was a lot younger. And what I wanted to do is to uncover and discover a little bit more about why certain people are affected by things, why some people are a bit happier, why some people are a bit sadder, and why some people find coast through things and other people really struggle. And that was my initiation. But we're talking about myself at 13 years old, right? So I was quite a deep kid. I tended to think about things quite a lot. And I just got a passion for business through those teen years. And that really built my confidence. And it was only through then, I'm sure we'll go over into it a little bit later, that I just started to uncover that there's a lot of people like myself, whether you're in the US or the UK or across Europe, that are really struggling to find what they really enjoy and to get the right information on what's going to make them feel happier and make them feel excited and fulfilled. And it's finding all of that when there's a lot of information out there that's very fluffy or very overly simplistic. It's not very practical. It's quite intangible. So my job as quite simple-minded guy was to try and think, right, how can I make something accessible? How can I make it cool? How can I make it good for people so we can solve some of these big well-being problems? Because as we were talking before we came on, there's a big challenge out there for people to feel good and happy and healthy themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's just with all these issues that people have going on. So when you were getting started out, what would you say is the biggest obstacle when you were starting this whole thing?
Biggest obstacle when you start on any sort of platform and doing something is yourself. I mean, people talk about it that it's, I need to, how do I build a business, or how do I find the right people, or how do I find what I'm good at? But all of that comes down to is you. And I know that's kind of a simple cop out, but it comes down to, we all have these doubts. We all have these, imperfections, and you can even call them these traits that might hold us back. And it's really the process through your late teens and into your 20s, or a stage that's known as emerging adulthood. It's all about moving through these transitions and understanding what it is that you're meant to do. And not that it's some divine purpose and this life purpose that where suddenly, you get struck by a bolt of lightning and then everything's sorted and you go through, but it's that uncovering of who you are. And for me, it was understanding how I could be the most effective entrepreneur, how could I be the most effective coach, and how I could be the best advocate for well-being. And to be honest with you, even though it's great to be on and go on things like this, on these podcasts and go to these talks and go to these events, I'm still uncovering it. And I think we always do. And we're still evolving and still learning. And I think that was the biggest challenge, was really going through and doing stuff in the areas of well-being. As a human being, I'm still doing it to this day and will always. But I like to think from that's given me a nice little foundation now, where I get myself, I get people. You mentioned I've worked with about 300 people now, one-to-one. So you get a really nice insight into how people work. And yeah, but the biggest obstacle is always with people, it's themselves. And there's ways and means to move past that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned before that you had worked with 300 people. You just mentioned it. What would you say are some of the most common themes that you get from people when it comes to why they aren't feeling the best and why they really need an adjustment?
Yeah, it depends on life stage. So I work generally with people generally millennials or emerging adults. They're usually in their sort of 20s and 30s, and they tend to be doing on paper like a lot of everything you see on Instagram or Facebook. They look like they're doing amazing, right? You scroll through your Instagram, and with that you think, wow, everyone's doing well and I just must suck or something like that. It's usually that tends to be that expectation. And that's the biggest problem I see with people is expectation, is that a lot of people have really high expectations of themselves, of where they should be in work, where they should be financially. It's not some magic thing that's just sprung on us with expectation. We've always maybe had high expectations, but now it's so much information out there, and we're constantly connected online and offline, that we really start to shape an idea of who we should be. And that should creates a big problem. So a lot of people I tend to work with who are doing well on paper. It tends to be their own inner stuff, as in, I should be doing better. I should be making more money. I should be happy in my relationship. I should be. That tends to be the big thing. So my job is not to be some sort of life guru that comes in. That is a common misconception of what I do, or what a lot of people in life coaching do. It's about asking effective questions, really starting to understand the person, really cutting through the bullshit of what's going on, and then starting to unlock answers from the inside out. That tends to be it. But expectation is the big challenge right now for people.
I couldn't agree. I mean, more expectations. I mean, everyone thinks that they should be getting that job that makes them six figures, just starting out. They all think that they've deserved it, that they've earned it. And it's just all a lot with all these other current generations where they really had to work for it. They really had to, put the time in before they got those promotions. It's just one of those things that this generation, I think, really needs to make a huge adjustment to. And also the social media, it's the hugest thing. I mean, you look on, like you were saying, these Instagram profiles where everyone seems like they're just kings of their own universe, where they're just loving absolutely everything in life. But deep down, they're just really miserable. But through all of your helping out people, are there any specifically issues for the UK that you really think are really the main reasons that are happening over there? Are there any UK specific issues?
Yeah, I mean, one thing just like before that, I think it's really important, because we all get wrapped up in our first world problems, the US, the UK, and many parts of Europe, that we haven't got it that bad, right? So realistically, we haven't. We've got a lot of our basic needs met. That's obviously not true for everybody. There's still poverty, in developed countries as well. But compared to a lot of the world, the problem tends to be is that each of everybody's pain is their own. And when everything is externally focused, as in like what somebody's done on Instagram, as we said, or where I should be in my career because maybe my mum or my dad were at this position by my age, or my friends are there by this age, or so on and so forth, that tends to be a really hindering factor to feeling happy in yourself, and also then progressing on the outside, so achieving goals and so on and so forth. There doesn't tend to be, now then skipping back towards challenges in the UK specifically, it doesn't tend to be a specific UK problem compared to, say, the US. What it tends to be is because everyone's been pushed to go to university, is that we were given these really high pressures and expectations to earn a lot of money, especially in London where I am. I earn a lot of money by 25, be in a sort of management-ish position, past the graduate scheme sort of role. And I'm pretty sure it's in the US, from the people I've worked with, that sort of college, just coming out of college age, is that I should be at this particular level. So there's some different cultural things, but in the developed countries, generally in the US, the UK, and across quite a few parts of Europe, it tends to be the same thing. It's people that are emerging in their adulthood, so they're going into their early 20s, going into their 30s, and they're thinking, I should have done this, but I haven't. And that affects their self-esteem, that affects who they think they are, their identity, and then also the level of meaning and fulfillment they have. And these words can sound a bit fluffy and a bit general, but it's true, that's what's going on. And I think my job and the team behind me, and I think people in the UK, and I know a few in the US as well, doing some amazing work in coaching and counselling, charities, not-for-profits, are doing some amazing work. So there's a lot of positives. We don't have to be all negative tonight. There are a lot of positives going on, but we all need to keep stepping up and keep spreading the good word.
Absolutely. And was there a specific moment in your life when you realized that this is something that you wanted to do, or was it sort of a progression of little things that added up?
Little things added up. I would love to say it was a Hollywood moment, as I said, like a bolt of lightning, or I was outside in the rain and rain was pouring down, but it wasn't. It was, going back, as I mentioned super briefly earlier, it's been in my family, mental health has been, quite prevalent. And I think going to university and excelling in business throughout school and excelling in entrepreneurship throughout school, but then getting put in that box in university and college to do a business degree and to pass exams. And I just felt stupid. I was saying to a guy called Tom, who I was on a podcast with recently, it's the classic. It's like if you take a fish out of water and teach them how to climb a tree, or whatever the phrase is. I butchered it then, I've just butchered it again now, but it's the same thing. It's like if you're put into a scenario that you're not good at, or an environment you're not good at, which was university or college for me. That's not how I do. I work with my hands. I speak from the heart. And if I have to do it in a pressured exam situation, that's just not what I'm made to do. And that really taught me. And coming out of university and then going on to job seekers allowance and benefits, which I believe is social welfare, I think, in the US. So going on to those things from a decent family, like I had a decent background, I had no excuses to be struggling. And I just felt, if I'm doing this, if I'm struggling, if I'm feeling down on myself, I'm feeling like it's hitting my confidence, there must be a bigger problem here. So I just went onto that path to discover. And I had no idea at 22 when I started this of, the big picture of what it would be with All In or with the time score with 20 someone, and the people I'd meet and the failures I'd have and the great victories and all that. But that's part of it, and it was a load of little moments that sort of shaped and made me understand who I was and what I could bring to the table. That was the main thing.
You don't have to name names, obviously, but do you remember the first person that you worked with, and what was that experience like for you the first time really getting to know someone and really helping them out?
Yeah, the first person I worked with was just after I did some like basic coaching qualifications, and one of my mentors back then, who's a very stern Polish guy, and he's a life coach in London, and he's doing very well now. And he took me under his wing, and I was his first sort of apprentice, if you will, who would come through and work as a support coach. And my first client was for £20 an hour, maybe. It was free or £20 an hour. I just remember being very, very nervous because, like anything that you do, whether you're starting a new graduate role or you go on your first day of uni or you've got that first job where you're a tradesman, or it doesn't matter what you do, there's that nerves there. You may have done the training, but when you go into the war zone, it's quite tough. But I remember giving it a lot of value, or giving a lot of value as much as I could then. When you look back now and you look 5 years into now in the future, and that's the level I was at. And I remember it being a realization that I really, really want to get good at this. And I think another big challenge that you tend to see is that people want to be good straight away because there's that impatience. And impatience is a wonderful thing if used correctly, but a lot of people in all different industries, whether they're running a business or they're part of an organization, they want to rush things. And it takes a long time to get good at stuff. I am in no way saying I'm the best entrepreneur. I know that for a fact, actually, and I know I'm not the best coach, but you have to just go through the levels. You've got to go up and up and up and up. And so from that, it was a nerve-wracking time, but I just realized, okay, I want to give this the time it needs for me to get like good, where I can grow, I can work with more people, get referred, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's a bit of a throwback. I haven't thought about that for a while.
So how does one get their certification for being a well-being and sort of wellness coach? What are the steps that you had to go through?
You can go through it in many different ways. So life coaching as an industry is not regulated. So anyone can rock up and say they're a life coach. That is a bit of a challenge, is that you tend to get people that don't go down the traditional life coaching route, or executive coaching or business coaching or youth coaching, and will call themselves a coach. They might call themselves a coach if they're in network marketing, for example, or they're in an Amazon affiliate, and they're building a team. Those things, they can call themselves a coach. Just to be really clear, a life coach is not a life guru. I think that's what a lot of people get wrong, and their ego comes into it. You realize, and you sort of realize what it's about. A life coach is just somebody that asks effective questions to unlock the answer in an individual. That's my job. It doesn't make me better than anyone else. My job is to hone in that skill and try and see the person in front of me and try and unlock something out of them to push them forward. And just moving through that, how you go through is you can get a few qualifications. They do open weekends in the US and the UK, so you can go and like try out. You can do a master's in coaching, you can do whatever. I did a few short courses and did it through things like Adler Coaching Academy, City University in London. So I did that. But to be honest with you, like probably every single career out there, it's all about on-the-job experience. On-the-job experience, I had some great mentors, and yeah, just learned my craft. And it was tough, but that you've got to do it to get there.
Absolutely. I mean, it is just like we're kind of talking about before. Kids really need to get their feet in and just work their way up. And I think that you really, really exemplify that best. But it also says that you're now available across 5 continents. How did you get that outreach and now that to be able to be on 5 continents?
So yeah, that was through our time score. So my big thing when I went to do this qualification, my first it was like a weekend thing, which was like a certificate, really. That's what it was. But, it was big for me back then. I thought I just got my PhD, right, in coaching. But all it was a simple weekend. And when I went there, I was the youngest by quite a way. I was 22 and I was the youngest quite there. And it was almost like, what do you do? Not they weren't like that, but like people I was telling, it's like, you're 22, what have you got? Being a life coach, you've barely been alive that long. You know what I mean? But when I was going there and I was in that place, the problem was there was a real fluffiness, a real intangibility to it that I found a bit cringe. You know what I mean? It was like, we're life coaches, that sort of thing, and or we're going to change the world. And it was, as much as I like that enthusiasm, it was a bit, I don't know, it just never fit with me. I'm quite a realistic. I like to talk and say things as they are, and I felt it was a bit fluffy, and it was always, that fakeness you see in certain things. That's what I felt when I was there. So throughout my journey of a life coach, I was like, right, I need to make sure this is like as down to earth as possible, as accessible as possible, as cool as possible. I always use the word cool because it's like I want to make people like, want to talk about it, want to talk about life coaching, want to talk about well-being, want to talk about happiness. And yeah, as I was going through this, through my training and moving through doing these particular things, as I'm in this training then and I'm seeing all this fluffiness, I decided, as I wanted to move through, is that we need to create something more tangible. So like data behind this. So it took many, many months, and help from other people as well, people in the areas of psychotherapy, other coaches, consultants, so on and so forth. And I built this score, which is basically 33 questions that measures you across your level of identity, so understanding who you are, level of meaning in your life, so how you attach to your day-to-day life, is it fulfilling you, is it not, and then your level of esteem, so the amount of value and worth you put on yourself. And I did that, and over time, like, people started to do it. I kept it free because I wanted everybody to be able to access it. And then, in the UK, people were doing it, and then, bless the internet, then it goes over to Europe and people are doing it in Europe, and it goes over, and then we get people in Australia, we get people in the US, and so on and so forth. To this day, gives us a really tangible, just numbers on a page about what people are feeling, specifically millennials. Like, what are they thinking? Like, how do they feel about relationships? One of the biggest things to come out of the Time score is that 43% of younger people are afraid to get close to people. They're really afraid to get close to people. And that's a really big challenge. If you think about day-to-day life, getting close to your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, that is a challenge. And I know as that, because I'm one of those people. I was that's who I was. And it's a big, big thing. It affects a lot of things. So I think the Time score and moving across there and it getting to 5 continents for me was like, okay, we're putting a lot more, data behind this. We're making this a bit more real. We're not just saying be positive, or we're not just saying, work hard. We're putting some numbers behind it. And I'm really proud of that.
Where do you think that past well-being campaigns or well-being intended people, where do you think that they have failed in the past that has made it where we have gotten to this situation that we've gotten at?
They've made it too fluffy. They've made it as something as in like, let's just be positive or believe in yourself and stuff like that. And, again, the intentions are great. Like, I'm not, having a go at people for doing that. But unfortunately, like, believing in yourself, for example, that's something known as self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is done by 4 different particular things. And that was by a very smart guy called Albert Bandura. So if people could believe in themselves, they would. It's not like they don't, I just don't want to believe in myself. It's not. There's things going on. And I think with that, it's failed people because it's given them very short-term answers to things. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't have its place, because it's good to sometimes read a post online or watch something quickly to give you that little boost, and you can be effective. I think that's amazing. But where I really care about, and I think that what my role is create things that can create longer-term change. So for All In, for example, it's 52 exercises that you do that each day. Each day takes 15 to 20 minutes. So that's going to take you 2-3 months. And people will be like, well, I want it in 7 days. It's like, you can't have it in 7 days. Like, you can't, and you probably lose, the people in the community for that, or customers, or people buying it. And that's absolutely fine. It's like, you've got to have things that work. And rightly so. Now we're a very, a generation that doesn't really trust very much. Like, trust is quite low, scrutiny is quite high. It's that I read that somewhere before, and I think it's so true. So where people have failed in well-being is they've been too fluffy, they've been too simplistic, and people are starting to see it now that there's this almost like this fake authenticity. It's very easy to say one thing online or offline to actually be something in reality.
Absolutely. And what do you think that the news media has any responsibility in what is currently going on? I mean, in America, there's always the 24-hour news cycle where it seems that it's a lot of like fear mongering. It's a lot of, getting people's anxiety up, which I really think plays a huge role in sometimes some of these kids, just losing it and just losing all confidence in humanity, losing all faith. And then they just become socially isolated. And then, like you said, they're very not trustworthy of people, and they're very just, standoffish. Do you think that that's very similar in the UK as it is sort of here in the US?
Oh yeah, definitely. In the developed world, it's huge. There's a lot said on the media, but this has been on for a long time. This isn't a new thing. It's just because it's 24 hours, as you said. I think now we seem to have talked about social media quite a lot because it is topical at the moment. There's a lot of information out there, and you can get that information overload. And with that information overload that you get, it's very hard to listen to that voice on the inside or listen to your gut instinct. I work with quite a few entrepreneurs and they don't like to be called it, but influencers online who've got big followings. Or I said, look on paper, you think, wow, they've got it made. But then, they face the same sort of challenges that there's so much information, there's so many directions that you could go. They end up feeling a bit, well, what do I do? Or untrustworthy of themselves where they're going to go. And you can look at simple tips for this, like, make sure you're engaging the right information, make sure that what you're doing online or what you're watching on TV or what you're reading is supporting you. There's that. But also, I'll be honest with you, I watch the odd program that is, ridiculous. Like in the US, I used to watch The Hills in the US, I think it was. I used to watch that. And, that's not some sort of like personal development entrepreneurial thing, but sometimes you need an escape. So there's a balance to all of these things. But generally, for young people, you've got to really stand guard at okay, what information I'm getting, how can I make sure that this is not interfering and distracting me from an inner voice? Because what then tends to happen is you tend to find you indulging things. You start to, it's a sex, drugs, rock and roll sort of thing. You tend to eat or you'll do anything because you don't feel fulfilled, and you'll start to indulge in things. You'll start to neglect what's important to you. So it's very easy to look at that, make sure things you're doing are nurturing you. So the information you're getting is nurturing you in some way. It's moving you forward. It's inspiring you. But as a caveat, as I said, doesn't mean you have to be listening to positive things online or reading positive things all the time. You're allowed to live. It's okay. So there's two extremes to this. And it's important to find out where you fit into it. So for me, for example, now when we finish the podcast, I'm probably going to go for a quick beer or so because I've had a long day, been working hard, and it's just nice to do things like that. Don't always have to be on it.
Absolutely. I mean, time for yourself is just so important. But when you're talking to people that you work with, or when you're setting up your programs, do you like to sort of have a limit on social media or like even cell phone use? Because I know a lot of people say that might be one of the sort of not cures, but one of the benefits that could help is if you aren't on your phone constantly, you could be a little bit more. I mean, there's studies that have shown that your stress level does go down the less time that you spend on your phone. Do you stress any of that in any of your classes or teachings?
Yeah, 100%. The main thing to do is never to be prescriptive. So being prescriptive is in saying don't use your phone is me talking from a guru perspective. I'm not a guru. I'm not that. And that's where I think a lot of people are going wrong, is that they're telling people to do stuff. So what we do, like on day 2 of All In, for example, is a bit of a plug, but it's true. On day 2, we have the Lent. And what you do is you look at what things in your life at the moment do you think are holding you back, where you may be indulging a little bit too much in? So people discover that for themselves. We give them some options. We talk about too much TV, too much social media, as you said, too many takeaways. That was a big problem for me, like too many takeaways, or even stuff online. Like people, there's a big problem. Like it's kind of awkward to talk about, but with guys and even girls watching too much porn, things like that, and it's awkward to talk about. But a lot of that's going on. Sexualized content. And loads of other different things that people might be distracted them. So we say, how do you feel when you do that? What's the emotion? And a lot of people tend to feel sort of flat afterwards, frustrated that they've, not nurtured themselves in the right way, or so on and so forth. And we say, what can you do? Is this something you need to reduce? Is it something you need to cut? Or is it something you need to replace? And that's it. We give them options and they come up with their options. So social media for me is a massive part of my business. So I'm not going to go off social media. I'm not. I feel like I use it in a very productive way. So with that, I look at, let's say I started to use it too much. Let's say I started to, watch too many videos on UFC or boxing or whatever. What I would do then is look at, right, I need to cut that down. On Instagram, there's a little timer on there that you can see how much average goes through per day. If it's 30 minutes, I'm going to cut it down to 25 minutes. That's going to be my role. And you do that. You take control. You're not cutting things to the extreme, but you're doing things in the right way. So yeah, day 2 of All In, we do this Lent. You're able to do that so that you can help yourself, and you don't have to just cut things. You don't have to just cut friends. You can reduce, you can replace, you can do different things that work for you. Because what I think works for me might be different to you.
Couldn't agree more. And one of the big things also that when I think about some of my friends, I mean, I'm lucky I have a physical job where I'm able to, get out and move and be active. But a lot of people these days, I mean, you're average 9 to 5 hour jobs where you're just in a little cubicle. You're not able to move around too much. You just sit there and you're just stationary. What advice do you have for those people? Because that can be very depressing in and of itself, just being forced to sit down for 8 hours a day and not really having control and not really being able to just, get some fresh air.
Yeah, I think I what I know about this is that because I'm not an expert in sort of movement and things like that and what you do, but what I do know is that we need to process our emotions, and emotions is a big part of stuff that I do. And there's 8 core emotions, a lady called PMLAD came up with, and these core emotions, what they need to do is they need to be released or they need to be utilized. All emotions are good, even like anger or fear. They're useful. They're not useful when fear turns to panic or anger turns to rage, but you can utilize them the same way. If you're cooped up in an environment where you're just sort of doing the 9 hours because you want to get that promotion or you want to earn commission or you want to impress your boss or your team or you want to get that project done, as much as you're like, wow, that's a great work ethic, you've also got to think about your well-being. You've also got to think about what is making you feel good. Because this is the one thing I promise everyone listening to this, is that the people that are happiest on the inside, they win in the end. If you get people that are happy in work, they are better in work. If you get happier parents, they are better parents. If you get happier entrepreneurs, they are more effective. They lead teams better, whether it's sport, business, whatever. So I've got this thing online in my Instagram that I call Happy People Win. And it's like my mantra, if you will. And it's so true. So whatever little things can give you that little boost of your well-being throughout the day, whether it's a 5-minute walk, whether it's that 10-minute article that you set an alarm for and you just watch every time. You have 5 things you subscribe to on YouTube, you just do one of those. It can be anything. People talk about yoga and meditation all the time. Great, if that's for you. I don't do it loads myself, but do it. It's important that you have that time just to not be in worker bee mode or stuck in that moment. You need to utilize your body so that you can release and express and work with your emotions instead of just contain them. It's not good for you, man. Not good for you.
Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of health and fitness guests on here, and one of the things that's similar to sort of that is a lot of them talk about, themselves personally or their friends. They've really gotten, working out and getting healthier and getting bigger just to sort of, because they think that would make themselves feel better about themselves. And they kind of learned the hard way that all of it's mental. If you're able to accept yourself and love yourself, I mean, I've had people that are some of, the most in shape people on the planet and they still say like, you know what, I still wasn't happy with myself. I still wasn't happy. I still had really just, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. And I thought that would help. And it didn't really help because I was just still in the same mindset. What are some keys that you tell people starting out with to really, get a basic understanding of how they can change their mindset in order to being more positive and just really looking at themselves in a positive image?
Yeah, it's huge, man. Like, let's put it down into like specific steps, right? So there's 5 main pillars to well-being that are universally accepted. I'll try and remember these all off the top of my head now. I should have written them down, but you've got autonomy, so you need that freedom, right? You've got personal growth, so you need to be moving up the ladder, right? You need a sense then, which is the most important thing that you said, of self-acceptance. All right, doesn't matter if you're jacked and you've got 200 kilos squat, or if you are in great shape, or on Instagram you've got a big bum and you get 10,000 likes. We see those out there. Whatever, it doesn't matter unless you have that level of self-acceptance, which is one of the 5 like core pillars. And self-acceptance is something that is absolutely attainable by people, but it can be more difficult for people to get because of their story, because of their experience. They might have had troubles when they were younger. They might have had difficulties with family. They might have had really harrowing experiences. And you can't just say, as I said 20 minutes ago, just accept yourself, just believe in yourself. It can be a little bit more tricky. And doesn't mean you can't do it. What that means is you can look at specific processes. So self-acceptance, think of Ed Sheeran. Okay, everybody probably knows Ed Sheeran. He is the epitome of somebody that accepts himself wholly for who he is. And he is a magnet for people buying his records. He's a magnet for people being attractive. He's not typically attractive. If you did that, like he's a good looking dude, but he's not, a supermodel. But yet he gets so many people that love him and like him and stuff like that because he accepts himself fully. So how you can do this is, first of all, start to build a level of evidence of why you are deserving of acceptance. Okay, the brain takes about 150 bits of information to start taking evidence. So think about it. So for you, why am I a great podcaster? For me, why am I a great coach? Or why am I a great student? Why am I a great parent? And write specific reasons of why you are something, because we usually tell ourselves the things that we're not. Okay, I'm not strong enough to do this. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not whatever. You've got to tell yourself what you are and give yourself specific bits of evidence or pieces of evidence of why you are something. That helps self-acceptance. And the one big word, which I think is super important, is just the word proud. if you can be proud of the little things that you do, and I know this sounds a bit, Miss America now, but it's so true. If you can be proud of the little things you do, not these big things and this big goal where you make 100, K sales, or get into the university you want to, or you get that six pack and you win. What it's all about, can you be proud of the little moments along the journey? Can you be proud of the intention that you have to get towards that journey? If you can do that, you start to build that self-esteem, you start to build that self-acceptance, and suddenly you stand taller. Your chest is out, and it's so simple, but people get distracted again. And I understand why they get distracted, because they think they need to look on social media, they need to do this, they need to do that. If you focus on those basics, happy people win, you start to do well. Everything goes from there.
And we sort of touched base on this a little bit, and you sort of answered a little bit, but just to elaborate a little bit more, like you said, people come from so many different backgrounds. I mean, if you were to take two people, so much of their life experiences could be different. Is that hard for you, sort of to gauge what would work best specifically for a person based on their background? Because like I said, if you were born and raised like super, super poor, or just a really abusive relationship, that's different from someone who's kind of like us, who was raised, in a good, sort of, a traditional way. Are there some ways that you sort of like to gauge how, first of all, how the person's background was, and then sort of how to deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my job, so I'll give you a bit of inside information. You can do this in work if you're interviewing people or whatever. So people are very, very complex. So who am I, or who someone is really complex. So you can't put it down to like an exact thing. But what you can do is you can see patterns that can help build up a picture of somebody. And you can profile who they are. Generally, the way I work is you look at three things. You look at what their values are. So what's the most important to them? Okay. Then you look at their traits. So what they're naturally alike. I was saying the other day, it's almost like at the beginning of a video game. You get a character and then they have certain traits. Some people are faster. Some people are stronger. Some people are more charismatic. You have certain traits of who you are. And then the other side of it, which is really important, is their story. So my story versus your story will be different. And that means that we will have different beliefs, different perceptions of the world. It will mean we'll approach situations differently. What my job is in that moment is to try and understand all of these things as quickly as possible, and not making it obvious. But that's what I'm doing when I'm first speaking to somebody. I'm like getting all of that down. Then with that, you can start to look at, right, if we move in this direction, they're most likely to come up with this challenge, or the reason why they are struggling with this confidence is because this part of their story, or because they value this particular thing, but they also value this thing and they clash. Okay. It's understanding all of that. So my job initially is to understand, okay, who is this person and how can we work with them the best? Because they're just like a puzzle, and you find the key pieces, which is the edges of the puzzle, right? The four main pieces. And then you just build everything around that. And you start to then see changes. And really, it's not like it is in the films or the movies. It's little gradual changes. And then within about 3-4 weeks, or on, all in, for example, in about a week or so, you start to see those changes. You start to see them open up. They start to see the world in a different way. And then once you see the world in a different way, you can do things differently. Your behavior changes and life around you tends to change, right?
And how has helping other people also sort of helped you with yourself? Because, I mean, I'm one of those people, too, where if I help out others, I just get the best feeling. It's just a great, great feeling. How have you used sort of your ability to help others maintain better lifestyles, or, just have a better mindset? How has that helped you out personally also?
Massively. And I'm going to be really, really honest here, because I could give you a really political answer, but I'll be honest. I think most people, when they do stuff, and a lot of my clients get into these big ideas because they have some sort of pain as well. And I try to talk about mine, which was, mental health was, I just thought, this sucks. Why do people I love feel like this? And why did I feel like this? So I think what you do when you go into a lot of these things, especially in the area of change, whether it's in personal training or coaching or counseling, is that you're trying to almost solve your own pain, right? You're trying to solve your own challenge. And I think we should be open to that, because it does drive you. You shouldn't try and hide that away. You shouldn't try and think, oh, I can't say that. So it definitely helped with that. But honestly, the best way that it's grown is that when I have coaching sessions with people that are way smarter or so much further along in a certain place, or they say things and they uncover things about themselves, or you get messages online or whatever, you unlock a bit of your own story. Then you think, oh right, this is why it impacts me in this way. So it really fills you with a lot more gratitude. I think a caveat to that is you've got to be aware that sometimes you become numb to it, because you get the thank yous, and you see people making changes and you just think, oh, that's normal. So you tend to do that. So it's very easy. So if any coaches are listening, or personal trainers or counselors, it's important to always continue that appreciation for what you're doing. But yeah, I've changed in loads of ways. I think entrepreneurship, so I class myself as an entrepreneur, but I specialize in coaching, but building different platforms and building businesses and doing that. For me, there's never been a greater lesson in learning about adversity and just going through the ups and the downs. That all the classics of I haven't made enough money this month to cover rent. I just about cover rent. And having to do embarrassing things like ask people for money or or even chase client payments and stuff like that, because you're thinking, oh my God, and you have all of this different inner turmoil, especially in the early days. But that adversity really builds up that strength, massively does. And that's why we need more people, especially, whether they go to college or they don't, or they go to uni or they don't, that we need more people going through these, putting themselves out there, getting in the game, putting your chips on the table and learning through messing up. It's so vital. And people say it time and time and time again about failure, but you have to do it. You just have to. You have to go through stuff. And I've learned so much. I could go on for probably an hour, and I know we shouldn't, but
No.
man, I've learned a lot.
Yeah. So if you could change one thing about the life coach, basically business type in general, what would it be?
Oh God, how long have we got? So I'm a bit of a renegade. I don't really fit into it, and I sound. If any life coaches listen to this, they're probably going to think I'm a bit of a dick. But life coaches need to forget that they're life gurus or that they are somehow better than life. The majority of people I come across think they are. I hold my hands up and almost felt that pressure to be that. Okay, back in the day, I would love to think that I don't do that now, but I'm not. Judge for yourself. But I think it's important to know that you're a coach. You're there to unlock an answer with people. I would take a lot of. It's hard, but I would try and take a lot of the bullshit out there. There's a lot of, as I said earlier, like fake authenticity and fake vulnerability online, where people are pretending to admit weakness or they're pretending to be real. And I think a lot of people are starting to see through it a lot. There's a lot of people making a lot of money online by making stuff up. And I get it. I completely get it, because brands and businesses are paying so much money towards people, so like ludicrous amounts. So I do get it. And there's a pressure to do that. I'll even call it out now. Mental health, which is amazing how far we've come in mental health. It's so close to my heart. But now there's a big driver to post stuff online about mental health, because let's be honest, it will get you more likes. It will get you more engagement. Mm-hmm. And I hope people don't take that in the wrong way, but it's important that we still think about what's most important. And it is how we feel on the inside. And if we can honestly say to ourselves with integrity that this is the right thing that I just did. I posted that, or I said that, or I spoke to that person, or I built this business, or I did this in work for the right reasons, because then you've got to be able to look yourself in the mirror, right? Life coaches and beyond, I think we all need to do that, because it helps us out on the inside as well.
Absolutely. And if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give him?
Don't go to university. I think don't go to university. Mm-hmm. I think that's it. And that's a weird thing to say, but I just didn't fit in that box. I didn't. And I excelled in school at business studies, and I spoke to my, it was actually probably one of the nicest moments of my career. I spoke to my business teacher, Paul Edwards, who I mentioned on the last podcast I was on. He's going to probably think he's a celebrity now, but he's an unbelievable guy. Just massive influence on me. And I was speaking to him the other day because I reached out to him and emailed back, and we sent some nice emails back and forth. And I felt like I really excelled in that part of my life and did well, and felt like, oh, I can, create things and do stuff. And then when I went to university, it really boxed me into a hole, and I just felt like I was stupid. I didn't do very well in university, and I ended up going down that path for a year or so where I was, unemployed and on job seeker allowance, social welfare, and just feeling just really shit about myself. So it was probably important that I didn't go to university, but all of these things you learn from. It's like I got so much out of university as well. But I think I could have done something quite interesting in entrepreneurship quite sooner if I hadn't gone. That's what my belief is.
I agree with that 100%. And just to make all of the Americans that listen to this very, very upset, what is the tuition rates for universities in the UK? How much do you usually have to pay to go to school?
I don't know now, because there's been battles all the time. So we're in Wales. So I went to university in Wales. So just next to England is, it was 3,000, I think it was. But then it's like 9,000 now. And all I know in the US is you guys pay a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Times that by about like 4 every year, the 9,000. Yeah. It's ridiculous. ridiculous, and that's why,
So much.
yeah, that's why. I mean, specifically, I think for the U.S., I mean, that's why you have so many of these kids. Like, I'm 24, I got 6 months left at my parents' house because I'm starting to, make money at my job. But it's just that's why there's this huge problem too, where kids don't feel like they're achieving much because they do graduate and they're like $80,000 in debt, especially in the U.S. And then they're still living at home till they're like 28 years old, and then it's just they're not feeling well about themselves. So that's just one of the big things too that really. And also, like I've preached this many times, college is not for everyone. There are people that are meant to go to college, and then there are also people that aren't meant to go to college who can also be super successful. Some of the most successful people on the planet were people that didn't go to college or dropped out of college. It's just all about finding out what works best for you. I mean, some people are not meant to be in a classroom for extended periods of time in the day. They're just way too active, and their mind's just going at too many paces. I was one of those, so it was a really big struggle for me, getting through college. But it's just, you got to find what is best for you specifically. And if people who are watching this want to sort of get in contact with you, want to sort of, get a hold of you because they think that you would provide something very well for them, how could they get a hold of you?
Yeah, simplest way to do it is I always love getting DMs on Instagram. So I'm over at SamJones20, which is all spelt. If you can link it, that'd be awesome. Let me just ping it down there.
Absolutely.
Then also we've got some good blogs, and we've got some amazing stuff on our All-In website. It's a workbook that gets delivered to your door. It's like a personal trainer for your mind, if you will. It's like a life coach in your pocket. And the feedback we've been getting from that this year is just amazing. And it's been from 5.5 years of hard work doing the right stuff, loads of different things that we didn't get into today. But yeah, they can go on and get to that at www.allin.uk.com. And there's some good, useful stuff on there. And then if you want to join the community, it's cheap as chips to join, as we say.
100%. I'll highly recommend it. And everyone down below will be all the links to go and find it. And where do you see this going within a year? In a year's time, a year from today, where would you like to see the company at? And where would you like to see yourself personally at?
Do you want an exclusive?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's what I want to do. I think that YouTube it's the new TV. That's pretty obvious. But I think a lot of things are starting to do series now on YouTube. So they do like episode 1, episode 2, and then they do a series, and then they do series 2. I think that's where YouTube's going. I would love to show a real insight into entrepreneurship and well-being coaching and really document that. So I want to get a videographer on board, producer. Like I've worked with a few, but like one that follows myself and the team around and just shows what I feel that I can provide is I definitely cannot give the best entrepreneurial advice because I make so many mistakes. I've done well, but I've made so many mistakes. But what I believe I can show is the reality. And I'm somebody that's very open about when I fuck up and all things like that. So I'd love to record all of that. That would be a big goal for me next year. But yeah, staying healthy, as I said, staying happy within myself, because I know when I'm happy and I'm the self-acceptance that we talked about, personal growth, autonomy and freedom. If I can keep doing that, I know that the platforms all in 20-some time will continue to grow. So those are my priorities.
I have a few questions remaining here before we wrap things up. You mentioned before, like you said, everyone fails a lot, and you failed a lot too, especially starting the business. What are some ways that you specifically have been able to sort of bounce back? Because a lot of people, I mean, if you have a bad self-image and you mess up, you're more than likely not going to try it again. I mean, I've had some people where they just mess up once at one thing, they never even touch it again. They don't even want to, get back on the ladder. They don't want to, just give it another good try. What are some tips that you use, or what are some strategies that you specifically use when you did have some of your failures where you could just say like, hey, this is still a great idea. I'm still really motivated to do this. How were you able to do that?
Yeah, I'll give you a process that I use, which is really simple and it works for me. Hopefully it works for everyone else, is defining, first of all, is the failure active failure or passive failure? Okay. Failure is not one thing. It tends to be split into two. Active failure is that you tried at something, you tried pretty hard and it didn't work out. Passive failure is that you stayed in bed too long and therefore you didn't get it done. Okay. So identify that, because there's different routes. Passive failure is like, okay, what can I learn from this? What didn't I know? What can I learn? What external help do I need? What resources do I need? Things like that. Passive failure is looking like, what made me want to stay in bed? What made me not want to go to that event? What made me so on and so forth? Okay. And you can do that. And then understand once you've done that is that the main emotion that you're feeling, which is usually sadness, sometimes fear, shame, frustration or anger, is look at how are those there to support me and help me. If you feel angry, channel that into energy, channel that into strength, channel that into aggression or assertiveness to get it done this time. I will prove them wrong. If it's sadness, look at it as a growing pain. Okay. When you get that, or when you get pain, it's there to help you grow. That is the gift almost of sadness. Okay. Fear, look at alertness, look at awareness. What happens if you continue to do this? If you keep failing at this passively, what continues to happen? Guess what? In 5 years, I'm going to be the guy that I look at now and I think, oh, I'd hate to be that guy. I'm going to turn out like this guy or that guy. It's important. So those are things to bounce back. The other thing I would use with that, which is a little bit different, is also just speaking to people. Be and say, hey, I feel whatever you're feeling because I did this. What do you think? And just by getting out there, expressing it, by not staying in the cubicle, as you talked about earlier, and staying there and just containing your emotions, but getting out there into the world, it helps. And it's so simple. But I understand people don't do it because they're so busy and they forget to do that. But just start small, do a little habit, a little pattern of understanding what it is, and just keep going. And honestly, everyone I work with that is very successful, and these people that are very successful people, they do the similar. They do step by step by step. Then they maybe take a risk and a leap, step by step by step, and they do that, and they get maybe a bit demotivated, get back on track, go again, and then it's that levels. That is. I mean, it's not a secret, but it's just like that's one of the ways you can get towards it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to wrap things up, I always love asking any of our guests from different countries, sort of, what would you say is the biggest stereotype that British people have of Americans?
Biggest stereotype. To be honest with you, when you're talking about college earlier, I was like, I would have loved to go to high school and college in America. Yeah. Your sports system, I'm probably getting it from all the films I used to watch and the documentaries I've seen on Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, it looked like all of probably even watching American Pie when I was a kid or something like that. But all the universities, I just thought, wow, that looks amazing. So the stereotype for me was high school looks amazing, college looks amazing. That was it. I remember looking into Penn State back in the day. Yeah. I wanted to play volleyball over there. I was looking at that and I was like, wow, it looks cool.
Well, one of the things, too, is that college is a great experience over here, but I think that's probably why they add, like there's a lot of theories that have said that one of the reasons why they let kids get away with so much stuff is because kids are paying so much, then they realize that they'd lose enrollment. So that's why you have these stories of kids doing like wild and crazy things and somehow getting away with it, is that I think one of those reasons. But speaking about high school, I mean, I'm from Minnesota, and here we have the state hockey tournament where we have 20,000 people watch a state championship high school hockey game. Wow. For these kids, and there's a whole tournament where there's like 15,000 people there just to watch the whole tournament of 8 teams in both divisions, so there's 16 teams total. I mean, it's insane. And then you talk about Texas where there's 30,000 people watching football games on weekends for just high school. I mean, high school sports, it's a religion basically. It's insane, and it's really cool. But I wish that some things would be like that. But I mean, I gotta say, I was when you were first talking about like wellness, there's always that stereotype here of some people from the UK sort of having that bland humor where they kind of just they're very accepting of things. They kind of, take things a little bit on the shoulder because they're just so used to sort of some hardships, and they're kind of, sort of just, that piss off, F off kind of attitude when struggles come on to them. So when it comes to dealing with different cultures too, like you said, you've dealt with most of the developed world. Has that ever been a struggle too, knowing that different cultures do have certain attitudes and certain, ways of dealing with things?
Yeah, it's generally different cultures are more accepting of well-being or wellness or coaching or self-help or whatever, all these different things. America traditionally is easier to, from a business perspective, to sell to, but you still got to use different language. You've got to use different languages and loads of things that people that I work with know a lot better than me. Now, with the UK, it's a bit more stiff upper lip. You could do it, but because of now this generation coming through, like millennials and then Gen Z after that, they're much more accepting of it. So it's better in the UK, but other parts of Europe are like,
I was going to say, good luck in Russia trying to get people to talk about their feelings.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Do not worry. You will see it. There will be a big statue of All In or something. Yeah, it's going to be huge. We'll get there somehow. I haven't figured it out yet, but we'll get there.
Absolutely. So again, Sam, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast. It was really great. And I mean, I love that, we're able to reach over. My goal is to get everyone from all English-speaking countries coming on. I've only not gotten from Ireland. That's my last one from all the English-speaking countries. So I got to get with that. But, understanding that accent, that might be a little bit of a trouble sometimes. So we got to make sure that we get a right person on there. But absolutely, I mean, everyone, go and follow him. Go and check out All In. Even if you are feeling good. I mean, it's always great to support people. And like I said, let me know if that YouTube series that you're working on is going to get produced. I mean, Lord only knows what I could do with a videographer and a producer. I'm still waiting to be able to get big enough where I can do that. But I mean, just keep us posted because I really, really appreciate what you're doing. And like you said, not too many people are doing it. There need to be a lot more people, talking about it. And there's always those stupid Facebook, Twitter things where it's like the Bell Let's Talk thing, where it's like, let's talk about mental health. And if someone posts that, even if you were to respond to them, they wouldn't even give a shit. So it's just, getting that awareness out there. I couldn't agree more. So again, you guys, Sam Jones, All In. Is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Who'd I like to give a shout out to? I can't think of anyone at the moment. I can't think of it. I try to think if there's any birthdays or anything like that. I'll probably give a shout actually to Matthew, who's my marketing director. He's with the Americans today. He's doing a great job at the moment, so he's having a little bit of a day off. But yeah, give a shout out to him. He's from France originally. He's currently in the Netherlands. So yeah, shout out to Matthew.
Awesome. And again, you guys, Sam Jones, all in. All these links down below. Really appreciate having Sam on. And this is DD on the Spot. Ryan Johnson signing out. Have a great day, everyone.